Protege is going to be out in theaters tomorrow, or it could be today, depending on when this review is up. It stars Maggie Q, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Keaton, and Maggie Q plays Anna, who is an assassin raised by Moody. Bad Eye Moody is in this movie after he discovered her in the aftermath of a massacre in Saigon. For years, they traversed the globe and completed high-profile contracts. But when he is murdered, Anna must return to Vietnam to track down his killer, and in the process teams up with a mysterious figure from her past to bring her killer to justice. This movie is directed by Martin Campbell, who has directed two of my favorite Bond films. He has also directed The Mask of Zorro, which I think is really good, and he also directed the very underrated The Foreigner with Jackie Chan. So he was able to take an actor that was slightly out of his element and put him in a darker story, and it mostly worked out. So I was excited to see what he was going to do with his first movie in 4 years. As always, I think he directs movies very well. I think his directing chops really shine through in all of his work, and he's able to get the most out of his actors. He knows how to film action scenes. I'll say that. Everything's in frame. Fights were really brutal. The physicality of the actors, you couldn't even tell if there were stunt doubles used. Well, I gotta give the actors credit for doing all of their stunts if they did them all. Or I gotta give props to the production team for using stunt doubles and hiding the obvious fact that they used stunt doubles if that was the case as well. So he is able to direct action scenes in a competent way. He's able to keep them in focus and keep a steady eye on the camera while he's filming them. Michael Keaton's pretty good in the movie. He looked like he was having fun with his role. I'll talk about Michael Keaton's character a little bit more. Samuel L. Jackson was more or less just Samuel L. Jackson in every movie. Maggie Q is really good in the physical scenes, but when it comes to her line delivery, she seems like a robot at times. There were a couple lines where I was like, oh, this is definitely a Terminator sent by Skynet, right? But the writer here is Richard Wank. Is Richard Wank? The writer here is Richard, that is very, holy shit. How many times have I tripped up on this dude's name? I'm just gonna call him Richard. This dude has written so many movies. He's written so many different types of action thrillers and action movies. The trailer for this movie, I will say, doesn't lie. The marketing was actually pretty accurate on this one, because usually with these types of movies, especially with females in the lead, the studio attempts to market the films as if they're action films, and they're more of thrillers. And I'm looking at you, the rhythm section. Red Sparrow. You watch the movie and they're nothing like what the trailer promised. Atomic Blonde is probably the only exception. But when it came to the Protege, I was mostly satisfied that what the trailer promised was a good majority of the movie. So I would say it lives up to what the marketing promised. It's just Richard's screenplay is a bit of a mess. It's all over the place. It gets convoluted, but it never gets convoluted to the point where it gets convoluted. I know, me saying all of that is probably convoluted, but it never gets to the point where it's not hard to follow. There's so many moving pieces with the plot. It's just, I think there's too many cogs in the kitchen, and too many side quests, it feels like, to that wrap around into the main plot to get me to actually care about what Maggie Q is actually doing. This screenplay took it a step further than I think it needed to go. I thought that this was going to be along the lines of like Mechanic or Mechanic Resurrection, where it was going to be an action movie, like the marketing promised us with those trailers, and for the most part, it was, but more in the vein of like mindless entertainment, where you can turn your brain off and just sit back, relax, and just watch Maggie Q kick ass, which she does throughout most of the movie. The screenplay just took it a step further, and I feel as if it needed to take it a step back. It needed to be more of that mindless, brainless entertainment, and I probably would have enjoyed it if it was that. Instead, it delves into Maggie Q's character's past, which is not a bad thing. You need a compelling character, but nothing about her past was all that compelling. Towards the end, we get into what the main crux of her motivation is. And felt like it was diving into a neo-noir type of narrative that the screenplay didn't call for before. It definitely went to darker places that I wasn't expecting it to. Somebody gets their fucking head chopped off. It's off screen, but then you see a character holding it up, and I'm like, this is actually darkly violent. A lot darker than I thought it was going to be, and I'm fine. I can handle all of that. It's just, I don't think the movie necessarily called for it. People getting mowed down in brutal ways, I think that would have been okay if this was one of those mindless, over-the-top type of action films, but It just takes itself too seriously. It needed to bring it back a little bit for me. The screenplay also gets really predictable. There's something that happens at the beginning, and I said, yeah, well, I guarantee that such and such is coming back, and such is actually not such and such. He's actually such and such. And that ended up happening. There were a couple other scenes where I guessed the exact outcome of the scene, the exact exchange of dialogue. When things like that happen, your script probably isn't as good as you think it is. With all of these visuals and all these fight scenes, the movie is a mask for a poor script. But us as audience members, we can see right through that facade. We know how bad that script is. Motivations for certain characters just aren't clear. I'm gonna bring Michael Keaton's character back into the fold for a minute. This dude was all over the place. He was good one moment, he was bad one moment, then he's kind of in the middle, and I feel like he was in the middle for most of the movie. Like, I understood what he was doing. That he, in a way, wasn't necessarily a villain, but was he? I don't know. Has two characters, Michael Keaton's character and another character, that are kind of conflicting, I guess. They kind of conflict each other. Michael Keaton's character feels like it's a gray area. There's another character that feels like it's the actual villain of the movie, but the screenplay doesn't express that. Nor does the movie all too much. Instead, it focuses on Michael Keaton because we all know who Michael Keaton is. Batman. We're going to gravitate more towards the known actor other than the unknown actor. And Michael Keaton's whole character motivation, this isn't what his character motivation was, but there was a point in the movie where I was like, is Michael Keaton's whole motivation in this movie just to fuck Maggie Q? Is that all he wants to do? He just wants to fuck Maggie Q? It seemed like that. There were many scenes that seemed like that. There were many scenes that felt like that to me. That's not his real motivation. I swear to God. It does make sense in the long run, and I did appreciate that this movie didn't attempt to overcomplicate itself. I just think it took itself too seriously and took it to darker places that it didn't necessarily need to go, especially in the third act. It feels a bit more stylish than it actually should be. Despite its competent directing and its stunts and its action sequences in the movie mostly living up to what the marketing had promised. It's not a very memorable movie because the script is just weak. The problem is, the script doesn't know that it's weak. It thinks it's genius. It thinks it's a brilliant action thriller when it's one of the most predictable movies I've seen in a while. I'm gonna say you will enjoy The Protege with stale popcorn. Kind of a rough one to get through. When are we gonna get a good female-led action film? It's really been elusive when you think about it. Other than anything Charlize Theron has been in. Studios just don't really know how to handle them, I guess. So what did you guys think of The Protege? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave my link for my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden. I'll see you at the movies somewhere.